With struggles to buy food, a poor woman takes her son out on the street to ask for money, but nearly faints when the boy calls a young billionaire Dad in front of everyone. Marie opened her eyes slowly, the sunlight coming through the window. Something felt off. The silence was different, heavy. She turned in bed, expecting to find Pierre, but his side was empty and cold. "Pierre?" she called, her voice still rough with sleep. No answer. She got up, put on her robe, and went to the bathroom. Empty. In the kitchen, there was no fresh coffee or toast. That was when she saw the folded paper on the table. With trembling hands, Marie picked up the letter. Pierre's words were cold, direct. "Marie, I can't go on like this anymore. I'm leaving. Don't look for me. Pierre." The floor seemed to vanish beneath her feet. Marie braced herself against the table, breathing deeply, trying to understand. How could he do this? After 5 years together, memories flooded her mind. The day they met at the cafe, their first kiss, moving into the apartment, and the arguments too, which had become more frequent. The long silences, the distant looks from Pierre. Marie found herself looking at the photo on the wall. She, Pierre, and Lucas, all smiling at a park. Lucas? How would she explain to her 5-year-old son that Pierre had left? She remembered how Pierre had accepted Lucas when they started dating. "He's part of the package," Marie had said, nervous. Pierre smiled and replied, "Then we're 3 now." The sound of small footsteps pulled Marie away from her thoughts. Lucas appeared in the kitchen doorway, his hair a mess, still in his Spider-Man pajamas. "Mommy, where's Pierre?" Marie swallowed hard. How could she tell the truth without breaking her son's heart? "Lucas and sweetheart, come here," she said, sitting down and pulling the boy onto her lap. "Pierre, he had to leave. Where did he go? When is he coming back?" Marie hesitated. "He's not coming back, my love. Sometimes, grown-ups, they decide they need to follow different paths." Lucas frowned, confused. "But why? Doesn't he like us anymore?" "It's not that, Lucas," Marie replied, fighting back tears. "It's complicated, but I want you to know it's not your fault, okay? Pierre, he had his own issues." The boy was silent for a moment, processing the news. "Are we going to be okay, Mommy?" Marie hugged her son tightly. "Yes, my love, we have each other, don't we? We're a team." She stood up, forcing a smile. "How about a special breakfast today, chocolate pancakes?" Lucas nodded excitedly and ran off to wash his hands. Marie began preparing the batter, grateful for the distraction. As Lucas ate, Marie called her workplace. "I'm sorry I'm late. I'm not feeling well. Could I take the afternoon shift?" After dropping Lucas at school, Marie returned home. The apartment felt bigger, emptier. She noticed the spaces where Pierre's things had been. His missing toothbrush, the shoes that were always by the door, the books on the shelf. Marie sat down on the couch, allowing herself to cry for the first time. The tears came silently but steadily. She thought about how much everything had changed. At first, Pierre had been attentive, caring, but over time, he pulled away. Fights became more common, usually about money or how much time Pierre spent out. She recalled their last major fight, 2 weeks ago. Pierre arrived late, reeking of alcohol. "Where were you?" Marie asked, trying to keep her voice low so as not to wake Lucas. "I went out with the guys from work." "What's the problem?" "The problem is you didn't let me know. I was worried." Pierre rolled his eyes. "You're not my mother, Marie. I don't have to report everything to you." The argument escalated, with accusations on both sides. Pierre called her controlling. Marie called him irresponsible. In the end, Pierre stormed out, returning only the next morning. Now, sitting alone in the apartment, Marie wondered if there were signs she'd ignored. Should she have realized Pierre was unhappy? Or was he simply not ready for a family? The ringing phone pulled her from her thoughts. It was her friend, Sophie. "Marie, is everything okay? You never miss work?" Marie hesitated for a second before letting the words come out. Pierre left. "What? What do you mean?" Marie explained, her voice cracking a few times. "My God, Marie. Do you want me to come over?" "No, thanks. I need some time alone. I still have to pick up Lucas from school later." After hanging up, Marie looked at the clock. She still had a few hours before she needed to get Lucas. She decided to take a shower, hoping the water might wash away some of the pain. Under the shower, Marie let her tears blend with the water. She cried for Pierre, for Lucas, for herself. She cried for the future she once thought she had, which now felt distant. Stepping out of the shower, Marie looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red and swollen, but there was a new determination in them. "You can do this," she told her reflection. "For Lucas." She got dressed and began tidying up the apartment, throwing out some of the things Pierre had left behind. Each discarded object felt like the end of a chapter. When it was time to pick Lucas up, Marie took a deep breath, tried a smile, and left. At school, Lucas ran up to her, proudly showing a picture he'd drawn. "Look, Mommy. It's the three of us." Marie felt a pang in her chest but kept smiling. "That's beautiful, my love. We'll put it on the fridge when we get home." That night, after putting Lucas to bed, Marie sat in the dark living room. Her fear of the future struck hard. How would she pay the bills alone? How would she raise Lucas by herself? But alongside the fear came a sense of resolve. She was strong, always had been. She had practically raised Lucas alone before meeting Pierre. She could do it again. Marie glanced at a photo of Lucas on the side table. His smile, his bright eyes. For him, she would face anything. With a resolute sigh, Marie headed to her room. Tomorrow would be a new day, the first of many without Pierre. It would be difficult, but she was ready for the challenge. Lying in bed, Marie cried silently one last time, letting herself feel the pain of loss. But when sleep finally took her, she dreamed of a future where she and Lucas were happy, strong, united. A future she was now determined to pursue, uncertain though it was. 2 weeks had passed since Pierre walked out, and the harsh reality of Marie's situation was setting in. She looked at the pile of bills spread out on the kitchen table, trying to do the math in her head. The rent, the power bill, the gas, Lucas's school, they simply weren't adding up. Marie sighed, running a hand through her hair. She needed a job, and soon. Pierre had never wanted her to work, always insisting he could support the family on his own. Now she regretted giving in. "Mommy, I'm hungry," Lucas said, entering the kitchen in his pajamas. Marie forced a smile. "Of course, sweetheart. How about a sandwich?" As she made the sandwich, Marie mentally reviewed her plan for the day. She had printed some resumes at the neighborhood library and planned to visit several businesses. After dropping Lucas at school, Marie straightened her one professional outfit, a black skirt and a white blouse that was a bit tight, and headed out. Her first stop was a marketing firm in the city center. "I'm sorry," the receptionist said after reviewing her resume, "but we're looking for someone with more recent experience." Marie swallowed her disappointment and nodded, leaving the office. 4 more companies turned her down with similar excuses. 5 years is a long time out of the job market, an HR manager said, handing her resume back. "Maybe you should look for something less demanding." By the end of the day, Marie came home exhausted and discouraged. Opening the door, she found Lucas sitting on the couch watching cartoons. "Hi, my love. How was school?" Lucas shrugged, eyes on the TV. "Fine. What's for dinner?" Marie froze. In her rush, she'd completely forgotten to stop by the store. She opened the fridge, almost empty. "How about pasta?" she suggested, pulling the last package from the cupboard. While the pasta boiled, Marie glanced around the apartment. Her eyes landed on the crystal vase she'd received as a wedding gift. Perhaps. The next day, after dropping Lucas at school, Marie went to a pawn shop. The man behind the counter examined the vase. "I can give you 50 for this." Marie hesitated. It was worth much more, but... "All right," she agreed, taking the money. In the following days, Marie sold a few more items. The watch her parents had given her, some books, even her wedding ring. Each sale hurt, but the cash helped keep the bills paid. A week later, Marie was making dinner when Lucas came into the kitchen with a piece of paper. "Mommy, I need this for school tomorrow," he said, handing her a note about a field trip. Marie read the paper, her heart sinking. The trip cost $30. She looked at Lucas's hopeful face, then at the near-empty fridge. "Lucas, sweetheart, I don't think you can go this time," she said gently. His face fell. "But why?" All my friends are going. Marie knelt down in front of him. I know, my love, but times are tough right now. I promise you'll go next time, okay? Lucas folded his arms, his expression a mix of sadness and anger. This is because of Pierre, isn't it? Why did he leave? The question caught Marie off guard. Lucas, I heard you crying at night, he went on. Is that why we don't have money anymore? Marie pulled him into a tight hug, fighting back her own tears. It's no one's fault, my love. Sometimes things get tough, but they'll get better, I promise. That night, after tucking Lucas in, Marie sat at the kitchen table once again, going over her finances. The money from the things she sold was almost gone, and she still hadn't found a job. Frustrated, she picked up the newspaper, scanning the classifieds. Her eyes moved over ads. Waitress needed, nanny for twins, office cleaner. She circled a few, determined to keep trying the next day. The following morning, Marie woke up early and made breakfast for Lucas. Mommy, he said between spoonfuls of cereal, is Pierre ever coming back? Marie froze. I don't know, sweetheart. Why do you ask? Lucas shrugged. Jacob in my class said his dad left one time, but then he came back. Marie felt a stabbing pain in her chest. Every family is different, Lucas. What matters is that we have each other, right? Lucas nodded, but Marie noticed a lingering doubt in his eyes. After dropping him off at school, Marie resumed her search for a job. She tried restaurants, shops, and even a pet store. Everywhere, it was the same story. Leave your resume, we'll let you know. At the end of the day, weary and discouraged, Marie stopped at a small cafe. She needed a moment to herself before picking Lucas up. One coffee, please, she requested, counting out her coins. As she drank, Marie watched the people around her. Couples chatting, business people holding meetings, students with laptops. They all seemed to have a purpose, somewhere to be. Marie felt invisible, lost. Leaving the cafe, she felt heavier than ever. She hadn't secured even a single job interview, and her money was quickly running out. Arriving at Lucas's school, she saw him sitting alone on a bench, head down. Hey, champ, how was your day? Lucas shrugged. Okay. Marie knelt down. How about we do something fun tonight? We can play that board game you like. His eyes lit up a bit. Okay. As they walked home, holding hands, Marie tried to stay positive. The road ahead would still be difficult, and she didn't know how she'd make it through. But for Lucas's sake, she had to keep trying. That night, after Lucas had gone to sleep, Marie sat in the dark kitchen. She took out her wallet and counted the remaining coins. It wasn't much, barely enough for food for the rest of the week. With a heavy sigh, she rested her head on the table. The tears she'd held in all day finally escaped. How was she going to overcome this? How could she give Lucas the life he deserved? But even in the depths of despair, Marie knew she couldn't give up. For Lucas, she would face any challenge. Tomorrow was a new day, another chance. She would keep fighting no matter how hard it got. Marie stared at the red envelope in her hands, her heart pounding. An eviction notice. 3 months of overdue rent had piled up, and now the harsh reality was at her door. The words on the paper were clear. 1 week to vacate the property. 7 days to find a new place for her and Lucas. Mommy, what's that? Lucas asked, stepping into the kitchen in his pajamas. Marie hid the notice behind her back. Nothing important, sweetheart. Let's have breakfast, okay? While Lucas ate, Marie tried to think. She needed a plan, and quickly. After dropping Lucas at school, Marie went to the landlord's office. Mr. Gomez, a middle-aged man with a permanent scowl, greeted her with a sigh. Miss Durand, I assume you're here about the notice. Mr. Gomez, please, Marie pleaded. I just need more time. I'm looking for work. I'll pay everything. The man shook his head. Marie, I've already given you plenty of chances. I have my own bills to pay. But what about Lucas? He has school and friends here. Please, just 1 more month. Mr. Gomez hesitated, but his expression hardened. I'm sorry. 1 week, Ms. Durand. Marie left feeling defeated. The neighborhood streets, which once felt welcoming, now seemed hostile. Every house reminded her of what she was about to lose. Back at the apartment, She surveyed her belongings. What was essential? What could be sold? Her eyes settled on Lucas's books. With a heavy heart, she placed them on the keep pile. That evening, Marie scanned the newspaper for cheap housing options. Shelters, boarding houses, anything temporary. The options were few and grim. The next morning, she began packing. Every object carried a memory. Pierre's vase, baby pictures of Lucas, the blanket knitted by her mother. Lucas walked into the room. "Mommy, what are you doing?" Marie hesitated. "Lucas, sweetheart, come here. Remember when we talked about moving?" Lucas nodded, distrustful. "Well, we're going to have to move to a new place." "But why? I like it here. My friends are here." Marie swallowed hard. "Sometimes we have to do difficult things, but we'll be together, and that's what matters." "Where are we going?" The question Marie feared most. "I don't know yet, sweetheart, but it'll be an adventure, right?" The boy didn't look convinced, but he nodded. The next few days passed in a blur of boxes and frantic searches for a new place. Marie sold what she could. The TV, the couch, even her wedding band. Each sale hurt, but she needed the money. On the eve of eviction, the apartment was almost empty. Marie sat on the floor amid boxes, her hands trembling as she held a photo of her, Pierre and Lucas from just a year ago. A knock on the door. It was Mr. Gomez. "I came to see how the packing's going," he said, less harsh than usual. Marie nodded, exhausted. He looked around, noticing the boxes and her defeated expression. "I hope you find a place soon." "Thank you, Mr. Gomez," she replied softly. After he left, Marie cried silently. On the morning of the eviction, Marie woke up early. She got dressed, then started organizing the last few boxes and suitcases. Lucas woke up, confused. "Mommy, where are we going?" Marie forced a smile. "We're off to our new adventure, remember?" They ate a quick breakfast. Marie did one final check, making sure they hadn't left anything behind. Standing in the doorway of the apartment, Marie took one last look around. So many memories. Lucas's first Christmas, movie nights, birthday parties, all would be left behind. With a heavy sigh, Marie closed the door and handed the keys over at the front desk. Outside, she and Lucas stood on the sidewalk, 2 suitcases and a few bags at their feet. Reality sank in. "Where are we going now, Mommy?" Lucas asked, his small voice trembling with fear. Marie held his hand, trying to look confident. "First, we'll take our things to a storage place. Then, well, we'll see what we can find." They began walking, dragging their luggage. Marie had scribbled down a few addresses of shelters and cheap guest houses, but nothing was certain. "Everything will be okay, Lucas," Marie said, more to convince herself than him. "We're together, and that's what matters." Lucas squeezed her hand, glancing back at the building they were leaving. Marie's heart ached, but she kept moving. Wherever they ended up, no matter the challenge, they would face it together. That was all that remained, the two of them against the world. The sound of chatter and the smell of cheap coffee woke Marie. She opened her eyes, momentarily disoriented, before remembering where she was. A homeless shelter. Next to her, Lucas was still asleep, curled up in his sleeping bag. It had been a week since the eviction, a week of uncertainty, of nights in different places, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy for Lucas. Marie got up quietly, careful not to wake her son. She joined the line forming for breakfast, noticing the weary faces around her. There were families like hers, lonely seniors, young people with lost looks, all sharing the same uncertain fate. "First time here?" asked a woman behind her in line. Marie nodded. "Is it that obvious?" The woman gave her a gentle smile. "A bit. I'm Carla. I've been here for 3 months. Marie, and that's my son, Lucas." Carla looked over to where Lucas was still asleep. "A kid on the streets is tough, but you'll adapt." Marie felt a lump in her throat. Adapt. Was that what awaited them? A life of shelters and food lines? After breakfast, Marie woke Lucas. "Let's go, sweetheart. We have to get you to school." Lucas rubbed his eyes, confused. "School? But we don't have a home anymore." "That doesn't matter. Your education is important. We're going to keep your routine as normal as we can, okay?" They left the shelter with their few belongings in 2 backpacks. Marie had stored the rest in a small storage unit, using what remained of her savings. The walk to Lucas's school had never felt so long. Marie tried to keep up a cheerful chat, asking about his classes and friends, but Lucas gave monosyllabic answers, staring at the ground. At the school entrance, Marie knelt in front of him. "Remember, we're a team. We're going through a rough patch, but it'll get better." Lucas nodded, but his eyes were full of doubt. "Will you be here when I come out?" "Always, my love. I'll always be here for you." After watching him go inside, Marie began her daily search for work. She dropped off resumes at shops, restaurants, offices, anywhere that might need help. The response was always the same: "We'll call you." Still, she refused to give up. In between job applications, she looked for more permanent housing options, cheap apartments, room rentals, anything that might give Lucas a real roof again. The hours passed slowly. Marie watched the clock, counting the minutes until she could pick Lucas up. When she finally arrived, her heart sank at the sight of him sitting alone on a bench, head down. "Hey, champ. How was your day?" Lucas shrugged. "Fine." They walked in silence for a while until Lucas spoke. "Mommy, Jacob invited me to sleep over at his house on Saturday." Marie felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. How could she explain they had nowhere to go afterward? "Oh, sweetheart, maybe another time, okay?" Lucas's face fell. "Why can't we have a normal house like everyone else?" Marie stopped walking, pulling Lucas into a tight hug. "I know it's hard, my love, but this is just temporary. We'll get through it together." They returned to the shelter in time to stand in the dinner line. Marie noticed the pitying looks from some of the volunteers, and her cheeks burned with shame. After dinner, Marie helped Lucas with his homework at a communal table. Other families did the same, all of them trying to maintain a semblance of normal life in the midst of chaos. When bedtime came, Marie lay down beside Lucas in their sleeping bags. The constant noise of the shelter, people talking, babies crying, the occasional argument, made it hard to relax. "Mommy," Lucas whispered in the dark, "tell me a story." Marie smiled, grateful for the distraction. "Sure, sweetheart. How about the story of the little prince who lived on a distant planet?" As she told the tale, Marie ran her fingers through Lucas's hair, feeling him gradually relax. When he finally drifted off, she let her own tears fall silently. The following day settled into a routine of sorts. Wake up early, take Lucas to school, search for work, pick him up, return to the shelter. The routine was grueling, but Marie clung to it like a lifeline. One afternoon, while waiting for Lucas outside his classroom, Marie noticed a woman watching her. After a few minutes, the woman approached. "Excuse me, I couldn't help but notice. You're Lucas's mom, right?" Marie nodded, wary. "I'm Beatrice, Jacob's mother. Lucas has been so quiet lately. We were worried." Marie felt panic rising. What had Lucas told his classmates? "We're fine," Marie forced a smile. "Just going through some changes at home." Beatrice hesitated, then continued, "Look, I don't mean to pry, but if you need anything—" "We're okay, thank you," Marie cut in, more sharply than she intended. The last thing she wanted was pity from other parents. That night at the shelter, Marie noticed Lucas was unusually quiet. "Is everything all right, honey?" He was silent for a moment before replying, "John called me dirty today. He said I wore the same clothes as yesterday." Marie felt her heart clench. She'd tried to wash Lucas's clothes in the shelter bathroom, but resources were scarce. "Oh, Lucas," she said, pulling him close, "don't listen to John. You're not dirty. We're doing the best we can." But the words sounded hollow even to her own ears. Marie knew she had to do more, find a permanent solution, but how? The next morning, determined to change their situation, Marie tried a different approach. Instead of applying for formal jobs, she started offering domestic help, cleaning houses, yard work, going door to door. Most people turned her away politely, but by the end of the day, she'd landed 2 small jobs, cleaning an elderly woman's home and taking care of a couple's garden. It wasn't much, but it was a start. With the money she earned, Marie bought some new, used clothes for Lucas at a thrift store. When she handed the clothes to Lucas, his eyes lit up for the first time in weeks. "These are just for me." "Yes, my love, just for you." That small victory gave Marie renewed energy. She began to plan, to dream of new possibilities. Maybe with more odd jobs like these, they could rent a room and leave the shelter. But life on the street was unpredictable. One night, Marie woke to the sound of shouting. A fight had broken out in the shelter, scaring Lucas. "Mommy, I'm scared," he whispered, clinging to her. She held him tight, feeling her own heart racing. "It's okay, sweetheart, I'm here." That night, lying in the dark with Lucas trembling in her arms, Marie made a silent promise. No matter how hard it might be, she would find a way out of this situation. For Lucas, she would overcome any obstacle. Days turned into weeks. Marie found more odd jobs here and there, saving every penny she could. Lucas gradually adapted to the new reality, although Marie still saw the sadness in his eyes when other parents arrived in cars to pick up their children and take them to comfortable homes. One evening, while helping Lucas with his homework, Marie overheard a conversation nearby. "They're opening positions for a new supermarket in the neighborhood," someone said. Marie felt a spark of hope. A steady job could be just what she needed. That night, after Lucas fell asleep, she stayed awake, planning. Tomorrow, she would be the first in line for those positions. It could be the opportunity that changed everything. With that thought, Marie finally closed her eyes, allowing herself to dream of a better future. A future where Lucas had his own room, where they didn't have to count every coin, where they could truly call a place home. Life in the shelter was tough, but Marie was determined. For Lucas, she would keep fighting day after day until they could leave this chapter behind. Marie woke before dawn, her body sore from the shelter's thin mattress. Next to her, Lucas still slept soundly. She watched his face, so young yet already burdened by their circumstances. A month on the streets had taken its toll. Marie's once neat clothes were now worn. Dark circles framed her eyes, evidence of sleepless nights and constant worry. Quietly, she got up and began her morning routine, washing her face in the communal sink, trying to tame her hair without a brush, checking whether their few clothes were presentable. While she got ready, Marie thought about the job interview she had later at the new supermarket. It was her best hope so far. "Lucas, time to wake up," she whispered, gently shaking him. The boy opened his eyes slowly, reality setting in as he woke. "Do I have to go to school today, Mommy?" Marie forced a smile. "Yes, sweetheart. Remember, education is important." They had a simple breakfast at the shelter, bread with butter and a glass of milk for Lucas, just coffee for Marie. She saved every coin she could. On the walk to school, Lucas was unusually quiet. "Everything okay, my love?" Marie asked, worried. Lucas hesitated. "Mommy, John said we're homeless now." "Is that true?" Marie felt as if she'd been punched. "No, Lucas, we're just going through a rough time, but we're not homeless. We're doing everything we can to get out of this." Even to her, the words felt hollow. How many more times would she repeat that promise? After dropping Lucas off, she headed to the supermarket. She had spent hours in the public library looking up interview tips and updating her resume. The line of applicants was long. Marie studied the competition, young students, other mothers in the same situation, middle-aged men seeking a second chance. When it was finally her turn, Marie entered the interview room with her heart pounding. "So, Ms. Durand," the interviewer began, looking at her resume, "I see there's a 5-year gap in your work history." Marie swallowed hard. "Yes, I was taking care of my son." The man nodded, not lifting his eyes from the paper. "And why do you want to return to the workforce now?" Marie hesitated. What could she say? That she was desperate? That she and her child were living in a shelter? "I feel it's time to restart my career," she said, trying to sound confident. The interview continued for a few more minutes with questions about experience, availability, skills. Marie did her best to answer, but she feared her replies sounded weak. "Well, Ms. Durand will be in touch if we're interested," the interviewer concluded, with a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. Marie left the room feeling defeated. She recognized a polite dismissal when she heard one. With hours to go before picking Lucas up, Marie wandered the city streets. Her stomach growled. She'd skipped lunch to save money. Then she saw it, a young woman sitting on the sidewalk holding a sign asking for help. People walked by, some ignoring her, others tossing a few coins. Marie watched for a while, an internal battle raging in her mind. Could she do this? Beg in the street? The thought filled her with shame. She had always been independent, proud of working hard, reduced to asking for spare change. But then she thought of Lucas, his sad face whenever she had to say no to a school activity, how he tried to hide the holes in his socks. With a heavy heart, Marie found a discarded piece of cardboard and an old marker in her purse. With trembling hands, she wrote, "Single mom with a 5-year-old son. Any help appreciated. God bless." Finding a busy sidewalk, Marie sat down, placing the sign in front of her. Her face burned with humiliation, and she kept her gaze low, unable to look passers-by in the eye. The first few minutes were agonizing. Marie felt the stares, some pitying, others judgmental. Occasionally, she overheard whispered comments. "She's so young, why doesn't she get a job? She'll probably spend it on drugs. Where's the father?" Each word cut like a knife. Marie fought back tears, reminding herself it was for Lucas. After what felt like an eternity, someone dropped a few coins in front of her. Marie looked up to see an elderly woman with kind eyes. "Stay strong, dear," the woman said gently before walking on. That small act of kindness nearly broke Marie. The tears she'd been holding back flowed freely. The hours crawled by. Some people were generous, others were coldly indifferent. By late afternoon, Marie had enough for a decent meal for Lucas and a bit left over. When it was time to pick Lucas up from school, Marie quickly packed away her makeshift sign, wiped her tears, and tried to pull herself together. Lucas ran to her at the school gates, his eyes shining in a way she hadn't seen in weeks. "Mommy, my teacher said I got the highest score on the math test." Marie hugged him tight, feeling a mix of pride and sadness. Her brilliant son, thriving despite everything. "That's wonderful, my love. How about we celebrate with a special snack today?" Lucas's eyes went wide with surprise and joy. "Really? Can we?" Marie nodded, the weight of the coins in her pocket reminding her of the cost of that joy. As they walked to a nearby cafe, Marie battled internally. The shame of what she had done still burned, but seeing Lucas's smile, it was priceless. She knew tougher decisions lay ahead. Begging again lingered as an option she never thought she'd consider. But watching Lucas devour his sandwich like it was the greatest thing in the world, Marie realized she would do anything for him. Anything to keep that smile, to give him a better future. That night, back at the shelter, Marie held Lucas as he slept. Tomorrow would be another day of struggle, another day of hard choices, but for now, they were together. And that was all that mattered. The scorching afternoon sun beat down on the busy avenue. Marie was sitting on the sidewalk, her makeshift sign at her feet. Single mom with a 5-year-old son. Any help appreciated. God bless. Next to her, Lucas played distractedly with an old toy car, his only remaining toy. Marie looked at her son, feeling a wave of guilt. She hadn't managed to send him to school that day. She had no money for bus fare, and it was too long a walk for him. "Mommy, I'm hungry," Lucas murmured, his voice almost lost amid the traffic noise. Marie forced a smile, ruffling his hair. "We'll eat soon, sweetheart. Just a bit longer, okay?" The hours dragged on. Some people stopped to drop coins or, more rarely, a bill. Others hurried past, avoiding eye contact. Marie thanked every donation with a tired smile, mentally tallying how much more she needed for a decent meal. Lucas, restless after hours of sitting, began to squirm. "Mommy, can I walk around a little?" Marie hesitated. The street was crowded, and she was afraid of losing sight of him, but his pleading look convinced her. "All right, but stay where I can see you, okay?" Lucas nodded, happy to stretch his legs. He paced up and down the sidewalk, still within Marie's line of sight. As rush hour hit, the sidewalk grew busier. Marie watched the sea of faces rushing by, so close and yet in an entirely different world. Suddenly, a shout pierced the air. "Dad!" Marie's heart stopped. She saw Lucas sprinting toward a luxurious car stopped at the red light. "Lucas, no!" Marie cried, leaping up and running after him. It all seemed to happen in slow motion. The car door opened, and a man stepped out, looking confused. Lucas ran forward with outstretched arms. Marie, panicking, tried to catch him before he stepped off the curb. She managed to grab Lucas just a few steps from the busy road, pulling him into her arms. "Lucas, what are you doing? You could have gotten hurt." The boy, tears in his eyes, pointed at the car. "But Mommy, that's Daddy. Look." Still holding Lucas protectively, Marie looked at the man who had gotten out of the car. Her heart skipped a beat. It wasn't Pierre, but there was something strangely familiar about him. The man approached, concerned and puzzled. "Is everything all right? Is the boy okay?" Marie nodded, still shaken. "Yes, he mistook you for someone else. I'm sorry for the trouble." The man looked at Lucas, then at Marie, his expression softening. "No worries. I'm just glad no one was hurt." He hesitated before adding, Are you two okay? Do you need any help?" Marie felt a lump in her throat. The kindness of a stranger, so rare in recent months, caught her off guard. "We're managing," she replied, her voice trembling. Lucas, still in Marie's arms, gazed at the man. "You look like Daddy in the photos," he said softly. The man seemed surprised. He studied Marie and Lucas more closely, genuine concern on his face. "I'm sorry to hear that. It must be tough." Marie just nodded, lost for words. The man continued gently, "My name is Thomas. Is there anything I can do to help?" A small crowd was forming around them, curious about the unusual scene. Marie felt the weight of their stares, humiliation burning in her cheeks. Thomas noticed her discomfort and the gathering crowd. "Look, maybe we should get out of here. There's a cafe around the corner. Let me buy you something to eat, and we can talk a bit. Only if you want to, of course." Marie hesitated. Part of her wanted to refuse, grab Lucas and disappear. But Lucas's empty stomach and Thomas's gentle gaze made her reconsider. "All right," she agreed softly, holding Lucas's hand. "Thank you." They moved away from the onlookers toward the cafe. Marie felt a mixture of fear and hope. A day that had begun like any other had taken a sudden, unexpected turn. Her heart pounded as she followed Thomas, not knowing what the future held. The little cafe on the corner was an oasis of calm compared to the chaos outside. Marie, Darce, Lucas, and Thomas stepped in, the bell above the door jingling softly. The scent of fresh coffee and bread filled the air, making Lucas's stomach rumble audibly. Thomas led them to a table at the back, away from the windows and any curious eyes. Marie sat down, pulling Lucas close, still unsure of what to expect. "Please order whatever you'd like," Thomas said, handing them menus. Marie hesitated, scanning the menu with a mix of longing and embarrassment. When was the last time she'd been in a place like this? Lucas, on the other hand, eagerly pointed at pictures of sandwiches and cakes. "Can we have this, Mommy?" he asked, eyes shining. Marie nodded, unable to deny him after all their hardships. When the waitress approached, Thomas placed the order: sandwiches, milkshakes for Lucas and Marie, and a coffee for himself. An awkward silence settled over the table as they waited. Thomas looked from Marie to Lucas, clearly trying to piece together a puzzle he didn't understand. "So," he began gently, "you're going through a tough time." Marie nodded slightly, her gaze on the table. "For a few months now," she said quietly. "And the boy's father?" Thomas asked carefully. Marie felt that familiar lump in her throat. He left us. One day he just walked out." Thomas frowned, a hint of anger flashing across his face. "I'm sorry no one should have to go through that." At that moment, the waitress arrived with their food. Lucas's eyes widened at the size of the sandwich and the milkshake. Marie couldn't help but smile at her son's excitement. As they ate, Thomas continued asking questions in a casual tone. He inquired about their life before the hardships, about Lucas's interests, Marie's future plans. She answered cautiously, still uncertain about his intentions. Lucas, his mouth full of sandwich, looked at Thomas. "You really do look like Daddy in the pictures," he said innocently. Marie froze, her heart racing. Thomas seemed taken aback by the comment. "Oh, really?" he asked, glancing at Marie curiously. Marie swallowed hard under his gaze. She knew she needed to say something, to explain somehow. But how do you confide such a secret to a stranger, How do you reveal something you've guarded for so long? Lucas, she said softly, why don't you go wash your hands? The bathroom is over there. The boy nodded, slipping out of his seat and heading for the restroom. Marie watched him go, gathering her courage for a conversation she knew she had to have. When she looked back at Thomas, his gaze was intense. Is there something you want to tell me, Marie? He asked gently. Marie closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. When she opened them, she looked straight at him. We've met before, she whispered. About 6 years ago. Thomas frowned, searching his memory. 6 years? I'm sorry, I don't remember. Marie nodded. It was at a party. I was working as a waitress. At the end of the night, we were together. Comprehension dawned on Thomas's face, swiftly replaced by shock. You're saying, Lucas is your son, Marie finished, the words tumbling out on a sigh. The silence that followed was deafening. Thomas stared at Marie, eyes wide. She saw the emotions flicker across his face. Shock, confusion, fear, and slowly, realization. Why didn't you ever tell me? He managed at last. Tears welled in Marie's eyes. How could I? It was just one night. Thomas, you were a wealthy businessman. I was a waitress. When I found out I was pregnant, I decided it was best this way. Thomas ran a hand through his hair, clearly overwhelmed. But all these years, are you sure? I mean, how do you know it's me? Marie nodded. I'm certain. There wasn't anyone else at that time. Just then, Lucas returned from the bathroom, stopping short when he saw his mother crying. Mommy, what's wrong? Marie quickly wiped her tears, forcing a smile. Nothing, sweetheart. Everything's okay. Thomas looked at Lucas as though seeing him for the first time. Now that he knew, the resemblance was obvious. The shape of his eyes, the curve of his jaw. Lucas, Thomas said, voice trembling, do you like ice cream? The boy's face lit up. Yes. Thomas smiled, still visibly shaken, but trying to remain composed. How about we get some at the counter? Your mum can wait here. Lucas glanced at Marie, who nodded in approval. As the two walked to the counter, Marie watched them with her heart in her throat, fear and hope churning inside her. When they returned, Lucas cradling a giant ice cream, Thomas looked like he'd made a decision. Marie, he said firmly, we need to do a DNA test. Not that I don't believe you, but yet this is a lot to take in. And if it's true, and I believe it is, I want to be part of his life. Your lives. Marie nodded, understanding the need for confirmation. All right, she agreed. Thomas pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to her. Here's my number. I'll schedule the test for tomorrow, if that's okay. And I want to help. No matter the result, you can't keep living on the streets. Marie stared at the card in her hand, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. After months of struggle, she finally saw a light at the end of the tunnel, but she knew the road ahead would still be complicated. As Lucas savored his ice cream, oblivious to the serious conversation, Marie and Thomas exchanged glances. Both realized their lives had changed irreversibly that afternoon. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a while, Marie felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever the outcome, she was no longer alone in her fight. The sun was already setting when Marie, Lucas, and Thomas left the cafe. The cool evening air contrasted with the heat of their revelations inside. Thomas looked at Marie and Lucas, his expression a mix of worry and resolve. Do you have a place to stay tonight? He asked, though he knew the answer. Marie hesitated, hugging Lucas closer. We've been making do, she replied vaguely. Thomas shook his head. I can't let you go back to the streets. There's a hotel nearby. It's nothing fancy, but it's clean and safe. Let me pay for you two to stay there until we sort this out. Marie wanted to refuse. Her pride, the only thing she had left, screamed at her not to accept charity. But then she looked at Lucas, saw the exhaustion in his eyes, and realized she couldn't deny him a safe place to sleep. All right, she finally agreed softly. Thank you. The hotel was modest, just as Thomas had said, but to Marie and Lucas it looked like a palace. The room had 2 single beds, a clean bathroom, and even a small TV. Lucas ran straight to the window, marveling at the city view. "Look, Mommy, you can see everything from up here." Marie smiled, a lump in her throat. She couldn't remember the last time Lucas had been so excited. Thomas lingered at the door, looking uneasy. I'll let you settle in. Tomorrow, we can meet to talk about the DNA test and what to do next." Marie nodded. "Thomas," she said as he turned to leave, "thank you for everything." He offered a small smile. "Get some rest." After Thomas left, Marie closed the door and leaned against it, letting out a long sigh. The reality of the day's events began to sink in. In just a few hours, her life had flipped upside down. "Mommy, can we take a bath?" Lucas's excited voice brought her back to the present. "Sure, sweetheart. Let's go." The hot shower felt like a blessing for both of them. Marie couldn't remember the last time they'd had the luxury of a proper bath with warm water and scented soap. She washed Lucas's hair carefully, grateful for a moment of normalcy. Afterward, dressed in the only clean clothes they had, they sat on the bed side by side, gazing out the window. The city lights sparkled like stars within reach. "Mommy," Lucas said after a moment, "that man, Thomas, is he really my dad?" Marie's heart clenched. How could she explain something so complex to a child? "Lucas, remember when we talked about different kinds of families?" she began gently. "Well, Thomas, he might be your biological father. But we'll talk about doing a test to be sure." Lucas frowned, absorbing this. "If he is, will we live with him?" "I don't know, sweetheart," Marie admitted honestly. "There's still a lot we need to figure out. But no matter what happens, it'll always be you and me, okay?" Lucas nodded and leaned his head on Marie's shoulder. "I liked him. He seems nice." Marie wrapped her arm around him, kissing his hair. "Yes, he does seem nice." It wasn't long before Lucas fell asleep, exhausted by the day's events. Marie tucked him in carefully and watched him for a moment. Her boy, so strong, so resilient. He deserved so much more than the life she'd been able to offer these past months. Unable to sleep, Marie sat in the armchair near the window, lost in thought. Her mind replayed the day's events, running into Thomas, the revelation about Lucas's paternity, the sudden shift in her circumstances. Part of her felt guilty for keeping the truth from Thomas for so long, guilty for failing to provide a better life for Lucas on her own. But another part, one she barely dared acknowledge, felt relief. Relief at not being entirely alone anymore, at having a chance, small though it was, at a better future for her son. The hours ticked by. Marie dozed off and on in the chair, waking occasionally to check on Lucas or to reassure herself that none of this was just a dream. When the first rays of sunlight crept through the window, Marie was already awake. She took another shower, savoring the hot water, then gently woke Lucas. "Good morning, my love. We need to get ready. Thomas will be here soon to pick us up." Lucas stretched, looking around the room, momentarily confused before remembering where they were. "Mommy, can we stay here forever?" Marie felt her chest tighten. "No, sweetheart, this is just temporary, but maybe we'll find a place of our own soon, okay?" They were finishing the complimentary hotel breakfast when there was a knock at the door. Marie took a deep breath, preparing herself mentally before opening it. Thomas stood there, looking just as nervous as Marie felt. "Morning," he said, attempting a smile. "Ready to talk?" Marie nodded, taking Lucas's hand. "We're ready." Together, they followed Thomas out of the hotel. Marie felt a strange blend of fear and hope. The day ahead held important decisions, difficult conversations, and potentially life-changing outcomes. But for now, she wasn't facing them alone. With Lucas clutching her hand and Thomas leading the way, Marie took her first steps toward an uncertain but potentially better future. The DNA test, the talks about what came next, all of it lay ahead. But for now, she allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time, the possibility of a new beginning. Morning was fresh as Marie, Lucas, and Thomas left the hotel. The sky was a clear, pale blue, as though the universe itself wanted to offer a good omen for the day ahead. Thomas guided them to his car, a sleek model that made Lucas's eyes widen in awe. "Wow, cool car," the boy exclaimed. running his fingers along the glossy paint. Thomas smiled, genuinely pleased by Lucas's enthusiasm. "Glad you like it. Want to sit up front with me?" Lucas looked at Marie for permission. She nodded, unable to refuse something that brought her son so much joy. While Lucas settled in the front seat, happily talking about cars, Marie climbed in the back, watching the interaction between them with a swirl of emotions. The ride to the clinic where they'd have the DNA test was short, but to Marie it felt like an eternity. Every traffic light and turn in the road brought them closer to a moment that could change their lives. She stared out the window, the city blurring by. When they arrived at the modern glass and steel building, Marie felt her heart pounding. Sensing her hesitation, Thomas placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "It's going to be all right," he said softly. "No matter the results, we'll figure this out together." Marie nodded, grateful for his support, even though she still felt uneasy. Inside, a smiling receptionist directed them to the waiting room. Lucas, fascinated by the new setting, flipped through a children's magazine while Marie and Thomas filled out forms. "Mr. Laurent and Miss Durand?" called a nurse a few minutes later. Marie blushed, about to correct the mistake, but Thomas spoke first. "Actually, we're not married. I'm Thomas Laurent, and this is Marie Durand and her son, Lucas." The nurse nodded, jotting a note. "Understood. Please follow me." She led them to an examination room where a middle-aged doctor greeted them with a warm smile. "Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Moreau. We're doing a paternity test today, correct?" Marie and Thomas nodded, while Lucas looked around curiously. "Is it gonna hurt, doctor?" the boy asked, his voice trembling slightly. Dr. Moreau knelt to Lucas's eye level. "Not at all, young man. It's pretty simple. I'll just use a swab inside your cheek to collect some saliva, kind of like brushing your teeth, but quicker and without toothpaste." Lucas giggled, visibly relaxing. The procedure was quick and painless. The doctor took samples from both Lucas and Thomas, explaining each step. Marie watched, feeling equal parts relief and apprehension. "Now," Dr. Moreau said, after securing the samples, "the results will be ready in a few days. We'll contact you as soon as we have them." Thomas thanked the doctor and they returned to the reception area. While Thomas settled final details, Marie sat with Lucas, who worked on a small puzzle in the kids' corner. "Mommy," Lucas whispered, "what if Thomas isn't my dad?" Marie felt her heart clench. "Well, sweetheart, if he isn't, nothing changes between you and me. It'll still be just the two of us, like always." Lucas nodded, looking thoughtful. "But what if he is?" Marie hesitated. It was a question she'd asked herself many times. "If he is, then we'll have to talk, all of us, about what that means for our family. But remember, no matter what, I'll always be your mom, and you'll always be my beloved son." Lucas smiled, hugging Marie. "I love you, Mommy." "I love you too, my angel," she replied, tears pricking her eyes. Thomas approached, noticing the tender moment. "Everything's set," he said. "We can go." On the way back, Thomas suggested they stop for lunch. He took them to a family-friendly restaurant, nice enough that Marie felt slightly self-conscious, but still laid back enough not to overwhelm her. As they waited for their food, an awkward silence settled over the table. Lucas finally broke it. "Thomas, do you have other kids?" The question took Thomas by surprise. He cleared his throat. "No, Lucas. I never married or had children. I was always too focused on work." Marie watched them interact, noticing a certain sadness in Thomas's eyes. She wondered if he had regrets about his life choices. "What do you do?" Lucas pressed, curiosity shining in his eyes. Thomas smiled. "I own a technology company. We create computer programs that help other businesses work better." Lucas's eyes sparkled. "Cool. Can you teach me how to make computer programs?" Thomas laughed, genuinely charmed by the boy's excitement. "Sure, if you'd like. Maybe we can start with some fun, simple games," Marie observed, filled with gratitude and concern. Thomas and Lucas were getting along well, but what if the test turned out negative? The more Lucas got attached, the more painful it would be if it all fell apart. After lunch, Thomas dropped them off at the hotel. Before they parted, he seemed to hesitate, searching for the right words. "Marie," he began, I've been thinking maybe you could stay at the hotel for a few more days, at least until we get the results and figure out what comes next. Marie felt a mix of gratitude and anxiety. Thomas, you've already done so much. We can't keep taking advantage of your generosity. He shook his head. It's not charity, Marie. If Lucas really is my son, I have 6 years to make up for. And even if he isn't, I can't just walk away and ignore your situation. Marie looked at Lucas, who was watching their conversation with curiosity, then back at Thomas. She saw sincerity in his eyes, a genuine desire to help. All right, she finally agreed. But as soon as we get the results, we need to talk seriously about the future. Thomas nodded, relieved. Of course, one step at a time. After he left, Marie and Lucas went back to their room. Lucas immediately turned on the TV, thrilled to watch cartoons, a luxury he hadn't had in months. Marie sat on the bed watching her son. Her mind whirled with the day's events and all the possibilities for the future. Part of her wanted the test to be positive. Thomas being Lucas's father would mean security, stability, a better life for her son. But another part feared the complications. How would this new family dynamic work? Would Thomas want shared custody? Or might he decide Lucas would be better off living with him alone? Marie shook the thoughts away. No sense worrying about things that hadn't happened yet. For now, they had a roof over their heads, food in their bellies, and the promise of a potentially brighter future. She joined Lucas on the bed, pulling him close. He snuggled against her, eyes glued to the cartoon, a small smile on his face. "Mummy," he said softly, "I think everything's going to be okay now." Marie kissed the top of his head, feeling a surge of love and protectiveness. "Yes, my love," she said, hoping with all her heart it was true. "Everything will be okay." Together they watched cartoons, and for the first time in a long while, Marie let herself imagine a better tomorrow. The next few days would bring answers and fresh challenges, but at this moment, sharing a peaceful time with her son, she allowed herself a little hope. In the days following the DNA test, life felt surreal for Marie. She and Lucas stayed at the hotel, courtesy of Thomas E., who insisted they remain until the test results were in and decisions could be made. For Lucas, it was like a vacation. He spent hours watching cartoons on the room's TV, something he hadn't done in months. Marie watched him with both joy and concern, afraid he might get too used to this temporary comfort. Thomas visited them daily, always bringing something for Lucas, a new book, a small toy, or a sweet treat. Marie wanted to protest, to say it wasn't necessary, but she couldn't deny her son the happiness these little gestures brought. One afternoon, while Lucas napped, Marie and Thomas spoke quietly on the small sofa in the room. "What if the test is negative?" Marie asked, voicing the fear that consumed her. Thomas fell silent for a moment before answering, "Marie, I won't lie. I'm hoping it's positive, but regardless of the result, I want to help you." Tears pricked Marie's eyes. "Why? You don't owe us anything." "Maybe not," he replied gently. "But meeting you both made me realize how empty my life was. I've been so focused on work, not really living. Lucas, he brought a light I never knew I was missing." Marie nodded, understanding. Lucas had that effect on people. On the 4th day after the test, the hotel room phone rang. Marie answered with her heart in her throat. "Ms. Durand, this is the clinic. The paternity test results are ready. Can you come by this afternoon to pick them up?" Marie agreed, her hands trembling as she hung up. She called Thomas immediately, and he promised to be there in an hour to drive them. When Marie told Lucas they would pick up the results, he grew strangely quiet. "What is it, sweetheart?" Marie asked, worried. Lucas bit his lip before replying, "What if Thomas isn't my dad? Will he stop visiting us?" Marie's heart broke a little. "Oh, my love, Thomas cares about you regardless of what the test says. I'm sure he'll still be around." Lucas nodded, looking slightly reassured. The drive to the clinic was tense. Thomas gripped the steering wheel tightly, while Marie stared out the window, thoughts racing. Lucas, sensing the tension, stayed quiet in the back seat. At the clinic, they were greeted by Dr. Moreau, who guided them into his office. Marie held Lucas's hand tightly as Thomas paced nervously, unable to sit. "All right, doctor." Moreau began, opening an envelope. "I have the paternity test results here." Marie felt like the world had stopped. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. "Mr. Laurent," the doctor continued, looking at Thomas, "the test confirms with 99.9% certainty that you are Lucas's biological father." Silence fell like a heavy blanket. Marie felt as though the floor had vanished beneath her feet. She looked at Thomas, who had stopped pacing and was staring at the doctor in shock. Lucas, not fully understanding the implications, tugged on Marie's sleeve. "Mommy, what does that mean?" Marie swallowed hard, finding her voice. "It means Thomas is your biological father, sweetheart." Lucas's eyes widened as he looked from Marie to Thomas. Thomas's face was a whirlwind of emotions: shock, joy, fear. I'm a father," Thomas murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Dr. Moreau, sensing the intensity of the moment, discreetly left the room, giving them privacy. Thomas slowly approached Lucas, kneeling to meet his gaze. "Lucas," he said, voice trembling, I am your dad." Lucas looked at Marie for confirmation. She nodded, and he turned back to Thomas. Can I call you Dad?" Tears slipped down Thomas's cheeks. "Of course you can, son, if you want to." Lucas hesitated a moment before stepping forward and hugging Thomas. The man wrapped him in his arms, silently sobbing. Marie watched, tears streaming down her own face. It was a moment she never thought she'd experience. Relief, yes, but also fear. What would this mean for them now? After a few minutes, Thomas gently pulled back, wiping his eyes. He looked at Marie with a mix of gratitude and determination. "Marie," he said, "I know this changes everything, but please know I'm committed to Lucas, to both of you. I want to be part of his life, to make up for lost time." Marie nodded, unable to speak. She knew they had a long conversation ahead and difficult decisions to make. "How about we celebrate?" Thomas suggested, trying to ease the tension. "Lucas, you pick the place." The boy's eyes lit up. "Can we go to the amusement park?" Thomas laughed, the sound bursting with joy and relief. "Sure, son." Leaving the clinic, Marie felt as though she was floating. Everything felt surreal. Just a week ago, she and Lucas had been living on the street with no hope. Now they had a future, uncertain but filled with possibilities. At the amusement park, Marie watched Thomas and Lucas on the roller coaster, their shouts of excitement echoing in the air. She couldn't help but smile, despite the worries still gnawing at her mind. Later, as they ate cotton candy, Lucas yawned, finally worn out by the day's excitement. "I think we should go," Marie said softly. Thomas agreed, scooping Lucas up in his arms. The boy rested his head on Thomas's shoulder, eyes heavy with sleep. On the ride back to the hotel, with Lucas dozing in the back seat, Thomas spoke quietly. "Marie, I know we have a lot to figure out, where you'll live, how we'll raise Lucas, but I want you to know I'm here. For both of you, we'll make it work somehow." Marie looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. "I know, Thomas, one day at a time, right?" He smiled, nodding. "One day at a time." At the hotel, Thomas carried Lucas up to the room and gently laid him on the bed. Before leaving, he turned to Marie. "Tomorrow, let's talk about our next steps. Maybe finding a more permanent place for you two." Marie felt a mix of gratitude and trepidation. "Yes, we can talk tomorrow." After he left, Marie sat on the edge of the bed, watching Lucas sleep. Her son, who had always been her entire family, now also had a father. The life she knew was changed forever. Lying down next to Lucas, Marie finally allowed the tears she'd been holding back to flow. Tears of relief, of fear, of hope. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it seemed bright. With a sigh, Marie closed her eyes, letting herself dream about the possibilities tomorrow could bring. Morning arrived with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Marie woke early, watching Lucas, still asleep, his face peaceful and unaware of the changes awaiting them. She wondered how best to explain everything to him, how to help him understand this new reality. A soft knock on the door signaled Thomas's arrival. Marie let him in, noticing the dark circles under his eyes. It seemed she wasn't the only one who'd spent a restless night. "Good morning," Thomas said quietly, stepping inside. "How is he?" Marie glanced over at Lucas. "Still sleeping. Yesterday was a big day." Thomas nodded, a small smile on his lips. "Yes, it was." They sat at the small table in the corner of the room, coffee cups in hand, ready to have the conversation they both knew was necessary. "Marie," Thomas began, "I spent all night thinking. I want to help you two settle down. Maybe find an apartment, something near Lucas's school." Marie felt a lump in her throat. Thomas's generosity both thrilled and scared her. "Thomas, that's a lot. We can't just accept—" "Please," he interrupted gently, "don't see it as charity. It's my responsibility. Lucas is my son. You two are, well, you're my family now." The word family hung in the air, loaded with meaning and potential. Before Marie could respond, movement from the bed drew her attention. Lucas was waking up, rubbing his eyes. "Mommy, Thomas," he murmured, sitting up. "Good morning, champ," Thomas said, going over to him. "Did you sleep well?" Lucas nodded, then frowned as if recalling something. "Are you really my dad now?" The room grew still. Marie and Thomas exchanged glances, unsure of how to proceed. "Yes, Lucas," Thomas finally said softly, "I am your biological father. But that doesn't change the fact that your mom has been taking care of you this whole time. We're figuring out how this works for all of us." Lucas seemed to mull that over. "So, are we going to live with you now?" Marie stepped in quickly. "No, sweetheart, at least not right away. But Thomas is helping us find a new place, a place just for us." Lucas's eyes brightened. "We're gonna have a real house again." Marie felt tears well up. "Yes, my love, a real home." The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotion and change. True to his word, Thomas helped Marie find a modest apartment not too far from Lucas's school. It was small but clean and cozy, a real home. Moving day was hectic. Thomas hired a small moving company to help, though Marie and Lucas owned very little. Seeing their few items brought over from storage stirred up a mix of nostalgia and hope in Marie. Lucas was overjoyed about his new room. Even though it was tiny, it felt like a palace compared to the shelter and the streets. "Look, Mommy, I have my own bed," he exclaimed, jumping on the brand new mattress Thomas had insisted on buying. Marie smiled, though a pang of guilt tugged at her. She wished she could have provided this for Lucas by herself. That night, after Lucas was asleep, Marie and Thomas sat in the small living room, both exhausted yet content. "Thank you," Marie said quietly, "for all of this." Thomas shook his head. "You don't have to thank me. It's the least I can do." He hesitated, then continued, "Marie, I want to be in Lucas's life regularly, not just as a provider, but as a real father." Marie nodded slowly. "I understand. I think that's important for Lucas too. But Thomas, we have to set some boundaries, some rules, for everyone's sake." They spent the next hour discussing visitation arrangements, shared responsibilities, and how they'd navigate this new family dynamic. It wasn't easy. There were tense moments and disagreements, but eventually they reached a mutual understanding. Days turned into weeks, and a new routine emerged. Thomas visited Lucas often, sometimes taking him on outings, other times just hanging out at the apartment. Marie watched father and son bond, feeling a mix of joy and anxiety. Not everything was perfect. Lucas, used to having Marie's undivided attention, sometimes resented Thomas's presence. There were tantrums, bouts of jealousy. "I don't want to go with Thomas today," Lucas yelled one afternoon when Thomas arrived to take him to the park. "I want to stay with you, Mommy." Marie knelt down to meet his gaze, her heart aching. "Lucas, remember what we talked about. Thomas is your dad, and he wants to spend time with you. That doesn't mean I love you any less or that you won't see me." Thomas, standing in the doorway, looked devastated. "It's okay, Lucas. We can go another day if you prefer." Moments like this were tough on everyone. Marie found herself in the middle, balancing Lucas's needs with Thomas's desire to connect with his son. Financial issues arose too. Though Thomas contributed, Marie insisted on paying her share whenever possible. She finally secured a part-time job at a local bookstore, working while Lucas was in school. One evening, after a particularly trying day, Marie sat on the apartment's small balcony, gazing at the city lights. Thomas had taken Lucas out to dinner, giving her a rare moment of solitude. She reflected on how drastically her life had changed in such a short time. From the streets to this stable life, from isolation to co-parenting with Thomas, it was a lot to process. A part of her still feared it could all collapse. What if Thomas decided this was too big a responsibility? What if Lucas couldn't adjust? But then she remembered Lucas's smile that morning, when Thomas surprised him at school for lunch, and the determination in Thomas's eyes when he promised to always be present. Marie took a deep breath, letting the night air calm her nerves. She knew the path ahead would be filled with challenges. Adapting to this new reality would take time, patience, and a lot of love. But for the first time in a long while, Marie allowed herself to hope for a stable future for Lucas, for a better life for all of them. With one last look at the city below, she stepped back inside, shutting the balcony door. Tomorrow would be another day, bringing its own hurdles and joys. She was ready to face it, one step at a time. 3 months had passed since Thomas decided to stay, and Marie took the bookstore job. Life had settled into a rhythm, maybe not entirely calm, but certainly more stable than life on the streets. Marie's schedule at the bookstore fit well with Lucas's school hours, while Thomas tried to balance his role as a father with his work commitments. One Saturday afternoon, as Lucas played in the park near their apartment, Marie noticed a group of people pointing and whispering in their direction. It wasn't the first time. Ever since their story had leaked to the local press, businessman discovers long-lost son living on the streets. They had become something of a local curiosity. "Say, ignore them," Thomas murmured, sitting next to her on the bench. "They'll find something else to talk about soon." Marie nodded, though she couldn't help feeling self-conscious. The sudden spotlight still made her uneasy. "How's work?" she asked, changing the subject. Thomas paused for a moment. "Actually, there's something I need to discuss with you. I've received an interesting offer." Marie felt her stomach tighten. Whenever Thomas started a conversation that way, it usually meant a major change was looming. "What kind of offer?" Thomas took a deep breath. "A chance to expand the company internationally. It's a huge contract, Marie. Could double the size of my business in 2 years." Marie forced a smile. "That's great, Thomas. Congratulations. But," he continued, his gaze drifting to where Lucas was laughing on the slide, "there's a catch. I'd have to move out of the country for at least 2 years." The world seemed to stop. Marie felt as if the ground had dropped away beneath her. "Move," she repeated softly. "Where?" "London," Thomas answered. "Their partner company's headquarters are there." Marie was silent, her mind racing, moving to another country, leaving everything behind. What about her and Lucas? "Marie," Thomas said gently, placing a hand over hers, "I know it's a lot to take in, and I know I have no right to ask this of you and Lucas, but I'd like you to come with me." She pulled her hand away, feeling trapped. "Thomas, we barely just got settled. Lucas finally has stability. Friends at school. I have my job. We can't just pack up and go." Thomas nodded understandingly. "I know, believe me. I've lost sleep over this. I've lost. But think of the opportunities. Top-notch schools for Lucas, the chance for him to grow up seeing more of the world. And you could study if you wanted. Go to college, start a career." Marie's head spun. It was tempting, no doubt. She could offer Lucas a life she'd never dreamed possible. But, and if it doesn't work out, she asked, voicing her deepest fear. "If we go out and you decide you don't want this responsibility, Lucas and I would be alone in a foreign country, with nothing." Thomas's expression softened. "Marie, I understand your fear. But you need to understand, you two are my family now, no matter what happens with the company or anything else, and that won't change." At that moment, Lucas ran up, flushed from playing. "Dad, Mom, did you see? I climbed all the way to the top of the slide by myself." Marie forced a smile, ruffling his hair. "We saw, sweetheart. You were very brave." Thomas scooped Lucas into his arms, tickling him. "How about some ice cream to celebrate, eh, champ?" Walking to the ice cream stand, Marie watched them interact. The bond they'd formed was undeniable. Separating father and son now seemed cruel. That evening, after Lucas was asleep, Marie and Thomas sat on the apartment's small balcony. "How long do we have to decide?" Marie asked, breaking the silence. Thomas sighed. 2 weeks. I know it's not much time, but... 2 weeks? Marie repeated, stunned. Thomas, this is huge. We can't just... I know, he said, cutting in. Look, it doesn't have to be a forever decision right now. We could try it for 6 months, see how we adapt. If it doesn't work, we come back, I promise. Marie bit her lip, thinking. The idea of a 6-month trial seemed less daunting. What about Lucas's school, my job? Thomas's eyes lit with hope. I've researched some international schools in London, and your job, well, as I said, you could study there or find something else. London is full of opportunities, Marie. They talked late into the night, weighing pros and cons, considering the possibilities. By the time they went to bed, no final decision had been made, but Marie felt the weight of what was coming. In the days that followed, Marie watched Lucas with new eyes, imagining him growing up in London, learning a new language, experiencing things she'd never even dreamed of for herself. A week later, at dinner, Lucas brought it up innocently. "Mommy, what's London?" Marie exchanged a look with Thomas before answering. "It's a really big old city in England, sweetheart." "Why?" Lucas shrugged. "I heard you and Dad talking about it. Are we going to visit?" Marie took a deep breath. It was time to have a serious talk with him. "Actually, we're thinking about living there for a while. How would you feel about that?" The boy's eyes widened. "Live there, but what about my friends and school?" Thomas chimed in gently. "You'd make new friends, champ, and there are great schools there. Plus, think about all the adventures we could have together." Lucas was quiet for a moment, then looked at Marie. "You're going too, right, Mummy?" Marie's heart twisted. "Of course, my love. The 3 of us always." That night, after Lucas was in bed, Marie found Thomas in the living room. "I think we should try," she said softly. Thomas looked at her, surprised. "Are you sure?" She nodded. 6 months. Let's see how it goes. For Lucas, for the chance to give him a better future." Thomas wrapped her in a grateful embrace. "We'll make it work, Marie. I promise." Later, as she prepared for bed, Marie gazed out the window at the city she'd always called home. In 2 weeks, they'd embark on a new adventure, full of uncertainties, but also possibilities. With a sigh, she closed the curtains. The future awaited. And for the first time in a long while, Marie was eager to see what it held. The days after Thomas's international offer were a roller coaster of emotions for the whole family. Marie watched him wrestle with balancing a huge professional opportunity and his new responsibilities. One morning, while she was making breakfast for Lucas, Marie got an unexpected phone call. "Marie, it's Sandra from the bookstore," said her boss's familiar voice. "I know it's your day off, but we need to talk. Could you stop by today?" The serious tone in Sandra's voice made Marie's stomach drop. "Sure, I'll be there after I drop Lucas off at school." After leaving Lucas, Marie headed to the bookstore, her mind racing with possible scenarios. When she arrived, she found Sandra waiting, looking concerned. "Marie, dear, have a seat," Sandra said, pointing to a chair. "I've received an offer to buy the bookstore. A major chain wants to expand into this area." Marie felt her heart sink. "Does that mean—" Sandra nodded sadly. "If I sell, and I'm strongly considering it, things will change. There will be staff cuts. But," she added with a small smile, "they're offering some managerial positions to key employees, and I recommended you." Marie was speechless. A promotion. That changed everything. I don't know what to say, Sandra. Thank you for believing in me." Sandra smiled kindly. "You deserve it, Marie. Take your time to think it over. It's a great opportunity." Marie left the bookstore with her head spinning. A steady career, a chance for professional growth. more than she'd ever hoped for just a few months ago. That afternoon, picking Lucas up from school, Marie noticed he was unusually quiet. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" she asked. Lucas chewed his lip before answering. "Mommy, the teacher asked us to do a project about our families. Everyone else has pictures of vacations and grandparents' stories. What am I going to share? That we lived on the street?" Marie's heart broke. Despite their best efforts, their past still weighed on him. "Oh, my love," she said, hugging him tight. "Your story is special. It shows how strong we are and how we overcame a really tough time together." Lucas nodded, still looking uncertain. "I wish I had cool stories to tell like everyone else." Back home, Marie called Thomas and asked him to come over that evening. By the time he arrived, Lucas was already in bed. "What happened?" Thomas asked, noticing Marie's tense expression. She told him about the bookstore offer and Lucas's struggle at school. Thomas listened intently, his face a mix of empathy and concern. "Marie," he began when she finished, "I need to tell you something too. I've decided to turn down the international offer." Marie stared at him, stunned. "But Thomas, it's such a huge opportunity. Are you sure?" He nodded, taking her hand. "Absolutely. I've thought about it, and I can't leave you and Lucas now. He needs stability, and we're only just beginning this life as a family. I'm not throwing that away for a contract." Tears welled in Marie's eyes, touched by Thomas's choice. "But your career?" "My career is doing just fine here," he said with a smile. "There are other ways to expand without moving halfway around the world. You two are my priority now." Marie squeezed his hand, feeling a surge of gratitude and affection. "Thank you, Thomas. That means so much to us." They sat in silence for a moment, both contemplating how their lives had changed. "What about the bookstore offer?" Thomas finally asked. "What are you going to do?" Marie took a deep breath. "I think I'll accept it. It's a good opportunity, and it'll show Lucas that we can rebuild our lives, that we can succeed." Thomas smiled, proud. "I think that's a great decision. You deserve it, Marie." Over the next days, life settled into a new pattern. Marie began training for her new position, excited by the chance for professional growth. Thomas poured himself into local expansion projects for his company, determined to prove he'd made the right decision. Lucas, sensing the optimism and stability around him, opened up more at school. With Marie and Thomas's help, he prepared a family project that highlighted not just their time on the streets, but how they overcame adversity together. A week later, at dinner, Lucas excitedly announced, "My teacher loved my family project. She said our story is inspiring and wants me to present it to the whole school at the next assembly." Marie and Thomas exchanged emotional looks. "That's wonderful, buddy," Thomas said, ruffling Lucas's hair. "We're so proud of you." Marie hugged her son, her heart brimming with love and gratitude. "See? Our story is special in its own way." Later that night, after Lucas was in bed, Marie and Thomas sat on the balcony, sharing a bottle of wine. "You know," Marie began, gazing at the stars, "just a few months ago, I never could have imagined we'd be here, living this life." Thomas nodded, gently taking her hand. "Life has a funny way of surprising us, doesn't it?" Marie smiled, squeezing his hand back. "Yes, it does. And I'm grateful for every twist and turn that brought us to this moment." They stayed there, watching the city that they now truly called home. Marie feeling a peace she hadn't felt in years. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, she faced it with hope and confidence. With Thomas at her side and Lucas safe in bed, Marie knew that, whatever tomorrow held, they would face it together, as a family. 3 months had passed since Thomas turned down the international offer, and Marie accepted her promotion at the bookstore. Autumn had arrived in the city, painting the streets in gold and red, a sight that fascinated Lucas every time they walked through the park. Marie watched her son from the apartment window, now truly feeling like this was home. It was modest but comfortable, filled with the memories they were creating together. "Mom!" Lucas called, rushing into the room with a paper in hand. "Look what I made at school today." Marie smiled, taking the drawing he offered. It was a colorful picture of their family, Marie, Lucas, and Thomas, all holding hands in front of a house. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," she said, hugging him. "Should we put it on the fridge?" Lucas nodded eagerly, running to the kitchen. Marie followed, her heart warming at how much Lucas had blossomed in these last months. His presentation about their family had been a turning point, helping him accept and even take pride in his unique story. The sound of the door opening signaled Thomas's arrival. "I'm home," he called. Lucas ran to greet him, jumping into his arms. "Dad, look at what I drew today." Thomas inspected the picture with a proud smile. "Wow, champ, you captured us perfectly. We might have an artist in the family." Marie watched their exchange with a mix of joy and gratitude. Thomas's decision to stay and focus on their family had cemented the bond between them in ways she never imagined possible. "How was work?" she asked as Thomas came over to kiss her cheek. "Productive," he replied. "The new local project is moving along well. And you? How was your day at the bookstore?" Marie beamed, a surge of pride filling her. "Great. We're finalizing plans for next month's big launch event. It's a bit scary being in charge, but I love the challenge." Later, after dinner and once Lucas was in bed, Marie and Thomas returned to the small balcony, each with a cup of tea. "You look happy," Thomas observed, his gaze warm. Marie nodded, sipping her tea. "I am. Sometimes I still catch myself waiting for something to go wrong. Like it's too good to be true." Thomas took her hand, squeezing gently. "I understand, but Marie, you deserve this. Both of you do. And I'm grateful to be part of it." They fell into a comfortable silence, taking in the view of the city lights. Marie thought about how drastically her life had changed in such a short time. From struggling to survive on the streets to living a life full of possibilities. "You know," Thomas said, breaking the silence, "I was thinking we could take a vacation on the next holiday weekend. Maybe to the beach. I think it'd be good for Lucas, and for us." Marie turned to him, a smile lighting her face. "That would be wonderful." "Lucas has never seen the ocean." Thomas nodded, excitement in his eyes. "So it's settled. Our first family trip." Family. The word still gave Marie a warm glow in her chest. It was something she never imagined she'd have again after Pierre walked out. The next morning, as she was preparing breakfast, Marie was surprised by Lucas, who entered the kitchen wearing a thoughtful expression. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart. What is it?" Lucas hesitated. "Do you think we'll ever go back to the streets?" Marie's heart clenched. She set down the spoon and knelt in front of him. "Lucas, why would you ask that?" He shrugged. "Sometimes I dream we're back there. It scares me." Marie pulled him into a tight hug. "Oh, my love, I promise we'll do everything we can so that never happens again. We have a stable life now, with Thomas, with my job. We're safe." Lucas nodded into her shoulder. "But what if something happens to you or Dad?" Marie pulled back gently, looking into his eyes. "Lucas, even if something happened to us, which is very unlikely, you would never be alone. We have friends. We have a support network now. You would always be taken care of and loved." He seemed reassured, finally smiling. "Can we have pancakes today?" Marie laughed, relieved by his change in mood. "Absolutely. Want to help me?" As they flipped pancakes together, Marie reflected on how far they'd come. Lucas was learning to trust in their new life, and she herself was finally allowing hope to settle in. That evening at dinner, Thomas brought up the beach trip idea. Lucas's eyes shone with excitement. "We're really going to see the ocean?" he asked, nearly bouncing in his seat. Thomas chuckled and nodded. "Yes, champ. We'll build sandcastles, go swimming, anything you want." While Lucas chatted about the trip, Marie exchanged a meaningful glance with Thomas. These were the moments they wanted for Lucas. Pure happiness, positive anticipation, joyful memories to overshadow the hard ones. Later, after Lucas was tucked into bed, Marie found Thomas in the living room working on his laptop. "He's so excited about the trip," she said, sitting next to him. Thomas closed the laptop, turning to her with a smile. "So am I. It'll be our first real adventure as a family." Marie felt her heart warm at his words. "Thomas," she said softly, "I want you to know how much I appreciate everything you've done for us. Choosing to stay, choosing to be fully in our lives. It means everything." Thomas took her hand, his eyes reflecting deep emotion. "Marie, you and Lucas gave me a purpose I never knew I was missing. I'm the one who should be grateful." In that moment, looking into each other's eyes, Marie felt a growing bond with Thomas. It was more than gratitude or friendship. It was something deeper, something that had been blossoming slowly. Smiling softly, she leaned in and for the first time, kissed Thomas gently on the lips. It was brief but full of promise. When they pulled apart, both were smiling, slightly shy but content. "I guess this is a new beginning too," Thomas murmured. Marie nodded, feeling light and hopeful. "Yes, it is. And I'm excited to see where it takes us." As they prepared for bed that night, Marie thought about how far they'd come, from living on the streets to a warm, loving home, from mere survival to steady progress, from loneliness to family. The future, once so bleak, now shone with promise. And Marie was ready to embrace it, with Lucas and Thomas by her side, one day at a time. The next morning, Marie woke up feeling renewed. The kiss with Thomas the night before marked the start of something new, something she hardly dared to name, but that filled her with hope. As she made breakfast, with Lucas chattering eagerly about the upcoming beach trip and Thomas helping set the table, Marie felt a deep contentment settle over her. This was the life she had always wanted for Lucas, and somehow it had become real. Watching her little family gathered around the table, Marie silently promised herself she would do whatever it took to protect this happiness, this sense of belonging. Smiling, she joined them at the table. The smell of fresh coffee, Lucas's laughter, Thomas's affectionate glance, all of it formed a portrait of domestic bliss that not long ago seemed out of reach. As she sipped her coffee, Marie thought that perhaps this was the true meaning of home. Not a place, but the people you choose to share your life with. And in that moment, surrounded by her family, Marie knew she was finally home.